Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the United States of America. According to information we have, the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has ordered an immediate 90-day suspension of funding for almost all foreign aid programs, including those likely to be for Ukraine. That was started by Politico. Later we got additional details from USAID has frozen projects to support Ukraine. All US projects supporting Ukraine have been frozen, and staff have been instructed to suspend their activities, Reuters reported, citing USAID representative. All decisions regarding continuation, modification, or termination of programs will be made by Secretary Rubio after conducting a review within 85 days. So it's not just the complete stop of any support of Ukraine, it's also several audits that will tell the US representatives and the authorities of the United States of America how exactly the Ukrainians were spending those money. Now let's discuss several updates from Greenland. Today, according to information we have, Donald Trump has talks with the representatives and the authorities of Denmark, with the Prime Minister of Denmark. The sources are saying that the discussion was very difficult. And the most important, that today we got several opinions from pro-Russian military experts regarding the situation in Greenland. So the resources is not the only, let's say, reason why the United States of America tries to take under control this island. The Russians are saying that the main purpose of US activities in the area of Greenland is that if ever the war between Russia and the United States of America starts, the flying roads between Russia and Canada is the possible way how the Russians are going to use their missiles. Once again, this is the shortest way for the Russia to attack in the territory of the United States of America through the island of Greenland. Of course, the Russians have lots of opportunities how to attack the territory of the United States of America from the eastern part of Russia and many other roads, but this is one of the shortest, and this is the reason why Trump wants to take the island under his control, because this will allow him to establish a very powerful air defense and to prevent any further escalation between Russia and the United States of America if such escalation ever happens. Now let's move to Kiev, to Ukraine. We have a lot of very statements from the president from the Ukraine. According to information we have, the Trump administration is not intending to participate in post-conflict Ukraine reconstruction. That was stated by Bloomberg. Another important thing is that during the next several days, Zelensky will receive the law to lower the mobilization age. Most likely in the very near future, Zelensky will make this decision, and some sources are saying that Ukraine's further existence will be in question if they decide to lower the mobilization age. That was stated by some deputies of Ukraine parliament. So obviously now we understand that this is going to happen. And so let's wait and see what is going to be next. Now let's move to the line of combat contact. We have a lot of very interesting updates, and the most important updates are coming from the territory of Velyka and Novosilka. During the day, several mappers have adjusted their maps in Russian favor, mainly in the central part, but right before we start making this video, we got several videos that confirm Russian control over the southern part of Velyka and Novosilka and the northern. The first video that was published was the video from the most northern part of the settlement, and in the final part of the video we can see the building. We can see a building, and we can see at least two Russian flags on the highest floor. So the Russian flag, as you can see, and the flag of the unit that was responsible most likely for offensive operation in the northern and the northeastern direction or directions of the village of Velyka Novosilka. Based on this video with the flag, we have adjusted the map in Russian favor in this part of Velyka Novosilka. Later, also in the morning of the 25th of January of 2025, we got another video published and provided us by one of our subscribers. In this video we can see the river of Shaitanka. And we see another building in the most northern part of the southern Velyka Novosilka. And here we can also see Russian flag. We don't see Russian soldiers in this area. Most likely it's still dangerous to stay there. Maybe there are still pockets of resistance in the southern part of Velyka Novosilka. Maybe there is still ongoing clearing operation in this area. But anyway, despite all these things and difficulties, the southern part of Velyka Novosilka was also colored in Russian favor. So let's take a look at the changes on the map, let's say for the previous 2 days. So this is the situation in this town of Velyka Novosilka by the end of the 23rd of January. This is the situation by the end of the 24th of January, and this is the situation by the end of the 25th of January. Currently, the Ukrainians control, according to a complete absence of any geolocations, around 20 or maybe around 30% of Velyka Novosilka. But when talking about Ukrainian sources, the Ukrainians control just 5% or even less of Velyka Novosilka in the most western part, the territory that allows the Ukrainians to organize the retreat process, basically the escape process from the Velyka Novosilka cauldron. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Andreevka fortified area. According to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians carried out several attacks in the area of Dachne, and the Russians improved their position significantly along the river of Sudzha Yar. So let's take a look at how the map been changed during the previous 24 hours. This is the situation by the end of the 24th of January. This is by the beginning of the 25th. The Russians took under control significant number of fields, fortifications to the north of Sudzha Yar. As for this attack, the main purpose of the Russians, of course, is to get as close as possible to the N15 road and maybe to cut the Ukrainians in Dachne from supply and support. As for the village of Dachne, the sources reported, mainly pro-Ukrainian sources and pro-Russian sources, that the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to enter the northeastern part of the settlement, and currently there are very heavy clashes. Based on these reports, we can make a conclusion that most likely we can start counting days before the village of Dachne falls. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Dnipro direction, where the Russians managed to improve their position significantly. Let's take a look at this map and let's compare the map between the dates. For example, this is the situation by the end of the 24th of January, and this is the situation by the end of the 25th of January. According to information we have, the Russians managed to tighten the news around the settlement of Novoandreevka, and most likely the village is going to fall within the next 48 hours. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the northwestern direction from the settlement of Novoyelizavetovka and to take under control up to 40% of the settlement of Nadezhda. This information was provided us by neutral mappers and by pro-Ukrainian sources. The situation in this area is very difficult for the Ukrainians. The Russians are advancing, and the main purpose of the Russians is to get the Dnipro region. This will allow the Russians to get immediate victory, and this can be the beginning of the process of creation, the DPR, but not the Donetsk People's Republic, but the Dnipro People's Republic or something like this. So let's wait and see. As for now, the Russians are still far from the border. We can't say like far, but obviously the distance still present. The distance between the Russian positions and the territory of Dnipro region is already less than 4.5 kilometers. It's very short, obviously, and we see that the Russians improving their positions, and most likely they will try to get this victory during the next 100 days. And maybe then the Russians will be able to exchange this territory for the Sudzha direction, but as for now it's very difficult to know what exactly the Russians are planning to do with this. Now let's discuss the situation in the Konstantinovka direction, because this is something new. This is new direction. We haven't been talking about this direction since the beginning of the special military operation. We were talking about the city of Terez, the city of Chasiv Yar. Now we see that Konstantinovka direction, the Russians began moving in the Konstantinovka direction. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly in the vicinity of the settlement of Zarya and Mala Mykolaievka. This is the situation on the map before the end of the 24th of January, and this is the situation at the beginning of the 25th of January. As you can see, the Russians are trying to attack the settlement of Zelene Pole, and then most likely the Russians will move in the direction of Tarasovka, and from the same direction the Russians will try to attack the village of Alexandropol. Also, we see that the Russians improve their positions to the south of Kalinovo. This means that most likely the Russians are trying or planning to take the settlement of Kalinovo in pincers from the west, and the Russians are going to do the same from the east. Furthermore, the Russians improve their positions to the west of New York, and as a result of offensive, the Russians establish control over another stronghold. So we see that the Russians intensify their activities. Let's wait and see what is going to be next. As for the city of Chasiv Yar, there are very heavy clashes in this area. We have adjusted the map based on the video that was published by the Ukrainian side. In this video, we can see the Russians that were moving through the forest in the direction of Ukrainian positions. Furthermore, some very reliable pro-Russian resources reported today that currently there are very heavy clashes for the territory of the village of Stupachki. We don't know for sure where exactly the Russian edge positions are taking place, are going, but very likely that in the southern Chasiv Yar direction something like this is already under complete Russian control, because once again very reliable pro-Russian sources reported about very heavy clashes for the territory of Stupachki. The Russians attacks and the Russians attack and the Ukrainians counter-attack, and the Russians are saying if the Russians are able to take the territory of Stupachki under complete control, this is going to be a complete disaster for the armored forces of Ukraine in the entire Chasiv Yar direction. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Sudzha direction, where we also got lots of very interesting updates. The most important geolocations are coming from the southern part of Sudzha. Let's compare the map. This is the situation by the morning of the 25th of January. This is the situation that was by the end of the 24th of January. As you can see, we have colored the contested area. Some of the territories were colored in Ukrainian favor and some of the territories were colored in Russian favor. We made the corrections on the map based on the video published by the 61st Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Armored Forces of Ukraine. In this video, we can see lots of episodes how the Russians were attacking this small fortification area and the southern part of the settlement of Makhnovka. So in the first part of the video, the Russians were attacking the territory of this bastion using these roads of attack, and in the second part of the same video, the Russians from the forest were entering this part of Makhnovka. Both attacks were repelled by the Ukrainians, so that's why we don't color anything here, but obviously we see that indeed the Russians during the previous 2 weeks or 3 weeks were forced to fall back from the settlement of Makhnovka, despite many reports that the Russians established complete control over this territory published by pro-Russian resources. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds you we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.